New this morning now out of Holyoke, a man was arrested Saturday after he was found with over 80 vials of suspected cocaine. Just before 5 a.m., an officer saw 18-year-old Javion Rosa on South Bridge Street in a car connected to a drug bust from earlier last week where crack cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl were found. Saturday night, officers searched Rosa and found more suspected cocaine and over $400 in cash. He's now facing various drug-related charges.
Staying in Holyoke, just minutes before that arrest, officers arrested two more people at the same place after they were found with cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl. Police on South Bridge Street saw Joshua Paulino Torres and Amber Rondell, both 36 years old, in the area with Paulino Torres concealing something in his hand. That's when officers stopped them and found them trying to hide the various drugs. They're both facing drug-related charges now.
Staying in Holyoke, 12 suspects are now behind bars following a warrant sweep across the city. Holyoke police worked with state and federal agencies and seized a trafficking weight of heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine. In addition to those 12 arrests, 4 juvenile suspects were also arrested in connection to a car theft in Enfield, Connecticut.